Hello everyone, I'm Dante here from Low Manor and welcome to another Lorewatch. Today we're looking at the latest addition in both Overwatch and the Overwatch world, Orisa. Before the Omnic Crisis, the world felt as though it was on the brink of something special, something momentous, that soon they would be reaching a point where inequality and poverty were a relic of the past. Such were the promises of Omnic Corporation, and the governments of the world bought into them, facilitating construction of the huge factories known as Omniums across the globe. Nigeria found itself home to one of these massive manufacturing facilities, and out of it, amongst other things, came the OR-14 line of security robots, known as the Adina line, meaning barricade in Yoruba. These Omnics were predominantly used as peacekeepers, standing guard in a world that looked as though it would soon need no guards at all. Reality did not match the ideal future, however, and soon it became apparent that many of Omnica's grand guarantees were hollow. Omniums started malfunctioning, triggering investigations that swiftly revealed they could never match their projected output levels. Corporate fraud was abundant, corruption ran rife throughout the company, and it was soon forcibly dissolved. The once great Omniums were either left to rot or actively dismantled, and the world began to move on. The existing OR-14s continued with their duties, but it seems certain that no more were ever built, leaving them to eventually fade into obscurity along with their creators. Once again, reality came crashing down on this expectation, and for reasons that to this day remain a mystery, the dormant and derelict Omniums burst back into life. Without warning, they launched an all-out assault on humanity. The previously cooperative Omnics fell into line with the new military onslaught, the OR-14s among them, and rapidly the humans were left with only themselves to rely on. Their erstwhile protectors had become their aggressors. New OR-14s began to pour out of Nigeria's re-energized Omnium, specifically built to fight the human enemy they had once served. The resultant war became known as the Omnic Crisis, one of the greatest threats to humanity in decades. History tells us of the struggles each country faced, and how a small band of soldiers and strategists brought together by the UN would come to change the tide of battle. A group of 6 that would go on to form one of the greatest organisations the world has ever seen, Overwatch. Under their guidance, the Omnic forces were defeated, and much like their robotic brethren, the OR-14s were dismantled and finally taken out of production. As the world began the slow process of recovery, and Overwatch began its expansion into almost every facet of science, exploration and technology, much of the world was left damaged and weary of the Omnic legacy that still remained. While many of the combat units, the E-54s, or the OR-14s amongst others, were gone, the most humanoid Omnics were still prevalent. In many countries this caused conflict and disharmony. In the United Kingdom, Omnics were relegated to an underclass. In Australia, the attempt to find an amicable solution led to the catastrophe that would eventually create Junkertown. Almost everywhere had similar problems that they either could not overcome or chose not to. Numbani was different. On Africa's west coast at the edge of the savannah, Numbani was built jointly by both humans and Omnics, and to this day stands as a symbol of what can be achieved through cooperation. Known as the City of Harmony, it has long been considered one of the most peaceful cities in the world, and it has for years now stood at the forefront of scientific discovery and exploration, continuing to do so even as the golden age of Overwatch fades into memory. Even Numbani is vulnerable to the roughest aspects of the world, however, and at some point they too found themselves under threat. While the full details remain unclear, the city believed they needed something to ensure the safety of its citizens. As such, they looked back into the old OR-14 units that had been both a protector and deadly threat, and rebuilt them into the city's image. The OR-15s were born, designed to provide the peacekeeping and protection once offered by the pre-crisis OR-14s. These OR-15s were built in the image of Numbani and fulfilled their purpose admirably. The key threat lingering over Numbani has for years now been a name synonymous with the city, a name linked with some of the city's greatest triumphs and tragedies, Doomfist. It was the return of this name that would see the ultimate failure and retirement of the OR-15s. With Unity Day on the horizon, an exhibition focused on the legacy of Doomfist to mark the festivities was scheduled to be held at the Numbani Heritage Museum, the centrepiece of which was the legendary Doomfist gauntlet itself. Again, the true facts remain shrouded in mystery at this time, but what is clear is that Adaway International Airport, a short distance from the museum itself, came under attack while the gauntlet was in transit. The OR-15s were dispatched to deal with the disruption, and they ran into the Doomfist himself. What followed was carnage, with every OR-15 reduced to smouldering ruins and spare parts. The gauntlet was stolen, and it seemed that Numbani, the city of harmony, was now under a greater threat than ever before. One of the witnesses of the wanton destruction at the airport that day was a young Numbani girl by the name of Efi Oladele. A prodigiously talented inventor and engineer, Efi was at the airport with her parents as they planned to take her abroad to celebrate her recent successes. Efi had just been awarded the Adaway Foundation's highly prestigious Genius Grant for her numerous accomplishments in the fields of robotics and artificial intelligence, a feat made all the more remarkable by her tender age of 11. While Doomfist's assault on the airport saw her plans to travel and celebrate cancelled, Efi instead found herself inspired. The rest of Numbani took the annihilation of the OR-15s to mean that their defenders were no longer fit for purpose, and both the government and the people themselves effectively gave up on them. Efi, however, saw their latent potential, and with her new resolve, she set to work to ensure that potential would be fulfilled. Using the money from her Genius Grant, Efi took to the workshop and set about rebuilding, upgrading and improving on every aspect of the old bots. Various purchases were required. An OR-15 chassis from the Numbani government and vocal processing units from Axiom sat on her list, alongside the likes of Volskaya Industries' Tobelstein reactor technology and the fusion driver weapon arm. But ultimately, Efi was able to acquire everything she needed. More than that though, she used her vast talent in artificial intelligence to give this new robot a heart. Orisa was born, her name referencing both the Omnic heritage and her potential as saviour to the city. Where the OR-15s fought as a collective to keep Numbani safe, Orisa stands as its lone protector. Still with much to learn, Orisa enters a world that is teetering on the brink of anarchy, with the second crisis raging in Russia, the tentative rebirth of Overwatch and the continuing threat of Talon. She may not have long before her services are called upon in anger. Still in between her strength and capacity to grow, and her creator's warm heart and boundless talent, Numbani has perhaps rarely been safer. After all, for Orisa,
your safety is my primary concern.
Thanks for watching this episode of Lorewatch. You can catch up with all previous Lorewatch episodes via this playlist, and we'll be updating some of the older ones in the coming months. Don't forget to hit that like button if you like this episode, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that little bell for notifications on our latest content. Until next time, I've been Dante, thanks for watching.